Good
Ronald.
morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. We have a meetup with our Homeless Trust Chairman, Ronald Book. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today for this very important conversation about the Homeless Trust. For those that are live on Facebook, strongly encourage you to take the quiz that you'll see in the link and just share this amazing conversation we're going to have with these two distinguished gentlemen. With that, I'll turn it over to our president, Eric Knowles, so he can introduce our guests for today.
Well, you know, it's really a pleasure, Ron. We obviously haven't seen each other. It's been a while. Working together with you at the Dolphins organizations, working with Wayne Heisinger, working with Stephen Ross, and all that you do throughout. And it's good to see you. In spite of these crazy times, we're all Zooming. And thank God we have that ability to connect this way. We've all had to pivot. But again, thank God we're able to do that and try to keep things moving. And today we're going to talk about the Homeless Trust, which you started many, many years ago. Ron Book is an attorney here in Miami and does so many things. He's the chairman of the board for the Homeless Trust. He started the Homeless Trust many years ago. He's the chair of Lauren's Kids, which his daughter, Senator Lauren Book, started many years ago due to child abuse. And Lauren and Ron has walked the state from Key West, from mile zero to Tallahassee, bringing awareness of child abuse. And so there's just so much that you have done for our community over the years, Ron, and that you continue to do. So just thank you for that. But and I know it's your heartfelt projects, and I wouldn't even say projects. You own this. You started it 20 something years ago, the Homeless Trust. And we know not only in Miami, but around the world, the homeless is today more than ever. We're getting ready to face something unprecedented as we are living through this COVID. And there has been basically a moratorium on evictions, and at the end of this month that moratorium goes away. And there are people, I just a couple of weeks ago, last week, on Facebook, a friend had mentioned that a lady was getting ready to get put out of her house and up there in Broward, and I think it was like 3 or 4 months behind, and this person was pleading for people to help, to help pay this lady's rent. And so, I mean, you live this every day. This isn't just something that's happened in the last 9 months. You've been living this for the last 29, almost 30 years. So with that, I'm going to shut up for a moment and let you bring you on and let you talk about what it is you do and the passion that you have for what you do.
Well, first of all, Mayor and Eric, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to speak directly to your membership about not just what the Homeless Trust does 365 days a year in and year out for the last several decades. When we started, there were a little over 8,000 people living unsheltered on our streets. Tonight, when folks put their heads on pillows, they can take comfort that we've reduced that unsheltered homeless population by over 90%, even through the great economic downturn, 2007 to 13. There's 1,020 still too many living on the streets, about 80% or so chronic, someone that's been living on the streets for 365 or more consecutive days, or have had 4 instances of homelessness in 3 years, consecutive 3 years. Think about the fact that we had only 800 or 900 shelter beds, units of housing 26 years ago. Tonight, we've got closer to 9,000, just under 9,000 units of housing and shelter beds. Put it in perspective, they got 9,000 students at St. Thomas University, 6,000 people cram onto a cruise ship, more than 8,000 in Wynwood, 4,000 students attend Barbara Goldman, Jackson, and Miami Central high schools. And that's how many people we serve every single day, serving almost 14,000 annually. But folks really want to talk about what did we do during COVID? And while we can look around America and we can say that Governor Cuomo did great things, and we can say that Governor Newsom on the other coast did great things, but one thing they didn't do that we did, they didn't have a plan to deal with their homeless population. How do I know? Because there were many, many days in March, April, May, and June where we were getting their numbers, 130, 120, 160, taken out of a shelter, taken to hospitals. We had the most aggressive testing program for homeless people in the country. We started hitting the streets with materials in 3 languages. We didn't wait till March. We were doing it the last week in February. We kicked that off on Saturday, February 22nd. We started English, Spanish, Creole, masks, hand sanitizer, sanitizing wipes. And back then, the CDC was still telling us you needed to be in gowns and you needed gloves. We were going to the streets to try to teach those 1,020 or so individuals personal sanitization, personal hygiene. Living on the streets, you forget about all that stuff. You don't have sinks, you don't have toilets, you don't have, it doesn't matter to you. Remembering that they are the most vulnerable in society. The average homeless person lives 13 to 17 fewer years than those of us on this Facebook show. I want you to think about the fact that we had to go to all of our shelters. Chapman House, which are homeless facilities owned by the trust, run by the Chapman Partnership, Camilla's House, the Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, Lotus House that only takes women and children. We had to go in and help our providers. Remember, we're the continuum. We implement the plan to end homelessness. We're the overseer of the continuum, and we're the funder of a lot of it, with $66 million a year going out to end homelessness. We had to create new protocols. When someone left in the morning to go to work, because people in homeless shelters work, or they left in the morning to go get services, or they left to go to a job interview, you couldn't just in those early days just leave the doors open to come back in. We were listening, not to the president. We were listening to what the CDC was telling us. We were listening to what Dr. Fauci was telling us. We were listening to what Dr. Birx was telling us, what our health department was telling us. And so we were pivoting. We oftentimes, Mayor Eric, oftentimes we would have 6 or 8 conference calls a day with our various providers, 40, 50, 60 people every day. We salute healthcare heroes in our community openly. We salute first responders who've all been in the face of ending and protecting people from COVID. Let me tell you who Ron Book's heroes are. Ron Book's heroes are the 286 people that serve in our continuum, who put their lives on hold for the last 10 months, put their families' lives on hold for the last 10 months, oftentimes living in our quarantine and isolation programs to protect those people that we know as the least, the lost, the last, and the forgotten, the homeless. We launched a very aggressive quarantine and isolation program. Why? Because the CDC told us we needed to get senior citizens to a safe place. We needed to get people with underlying health conditions to a safe place. So we started by contracting with the Dunn's Josephine Hotel in Overtown, hotel owned by an African-American woman. We felt that was important, not simply symbolic. That place has been full since we started. That was the first hotel we contracted to. Why? We believed that if we look at the numbers, while we can probably both agree that about 19% of Miami-Dade's population are people of color, it doesn't change the fact that 66% of the people that are in our continuum, 66% of the people that are homeless in our community are people of color.
Wow.
We had an obligation to keep those folks, if we were going to quarantine them, near their community. It was important to us. We took 165 senior citizens, and think about this. We have senior citizens that have been living in our shelters for 900 days, 1,000 days, 1,200 days. We took all 165 of them out of those shelters and put them in hotel rooms. We took another 320 seniors right off the streets and put them in hotel rooms, and the vast majority of them remain in hotel rooms today, now. We've served over 91,000 meals to those folks. We have had to provide security. We have had to provide everything to that population. And let me go back to the testing program we launched. We're still testing people today. We have 3 mobile crews out right now. We've had as many as 4 ongoing testing homeless people. We've tested right at 13,000 individuals with an average positivity rate of 1.2%, 1.3%. Think about that number compared to everywhere else. Think about the fact that while most places in America, large urban communities, have had hundreds of homeless people die, and while I'm going to use the word only to qualify what I'm about to say, we've only had 6 deaths of homeless individuals. We've had fewer than 260 hospitalizations total of homeless individuals because of the aggressive prevention programs we've put in place. And I'm ready to talk evictions and foreclosures, which is about to be the greatest crisis to ever hit our community since I got here at 6 months old.
Well, Ron, you talk about the numbers that you say 60% is the brown and black communities are affected more than any. Why is that? What's driving those numbers?
Well, look, we've spent the last 12 to 18 months focused on understanding disparities. Look, we know that people of color suffer from entry-level jobs that put them into the low wage earner, extremely low wage earner categories. I don't know that I've got all of the sociological reasons why that's happened in our community and communities all across our country, but we're doing what we need to do to make sure that equality exists. We're doing aggressive risk assessments with our contracted providers, requiring them to make certain that their agencies have adopted, if you will, racial equity programmatic statements that they are making certain the folks that work for them comply with. We've required them to begin to look more closely at the racial composition of their board and their staff. We're conducting our own risk assessments. Look at the composition of our Board of County Commissioners and look at our own board and look at how we break out our committees. We've adopted restorative justice practice as well to mitigate discharges from programs. We've got a system-wide housing first framework that promotes housing first and foremost without service participation requirements, all of which are focused, Eric, at that 66% that we serve. Think about that number compared to our community as a whole. And as we get closer to having the discussion about December 31st and the expiration of the moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, that only because the CDC has kept it in place, because the CARES Act moratorium went away, the governor's moratorium went away. The mayor does not really have the authority to create a broader one, even though I think that there are some things we're working with her directly. We've had many, since her election, many conference calls, Zooms, and the like, as we've developed our eviction and foreclosure plan, which we have a three-pronged program to address.
Well, speaking about that, the more, as you and I were speaking before we actually came on, and we know at the end of December, the moratorium goes away. You have over 7,000 evictions that are basically in place, a button to be pushed to tell these folks that they got to leave their property. What are we doing? I mean, what is the answer? And Ron, I know you've been engaged in this basically all your life, your adult life, working on this, half your life anyway. What can we do as a community?
I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to attempt to do this in a composed way, but it is extremely difficult and it is extremely painful to me. All these years in this homeless space, and when I got here, I felt like the challenge of all those 8,000 plus people unsheltered living on our streets was really the biggest challenge we would face. But that basically 7,000 cases that are filed, 3-day notice, posted, action filed before the moratoriums went into place. The only things that's stopping a final hearing and a final order of eviction or foreclosure is that CDC moratorium. That doesn't represent 7,000 people. That represents closer to 20,000 people. We have had conversations with the law firms that handle the largest apartment management groups in our community. We know there are thousands more that are prepared. 3-day notices have been served because you could serve 3-day notices. Once the CARES Act moratorium went away and once the governor's moratorium went away, 3-day notices could get posted. 3-day notice doesn't require you to file that eviction immediately. Those 3-day notices are still good, which means those actions are ripe, ready to be filed. We're talking about more people than I can begin to count.
The reality of it, Ron, as you say, we talk about 7,000 or 8,000 evictions, but you're talking about families that might be 3, 4, 5 deeper.
We're going to find ourselves in a potential situation where we save the community from dying from COVID. We save the community from being infected by COVID. We will have defied every set of odds in any other place in America and had unbelievable results because we live in a community that does care. We live in a village of 2.7 million people who know how to take care of the least, the lost, the last, and the forgotten. And we spent the last 6 or 7 weeks trying to put up a plan together, one that creates, identify, educate, direct, and assist. By identify, we've been working with the clerks of the court, half a dozen judges led by Judge Leifman, and a few of our key nonprofit providers that have identified where those zip codes are, where the most number of eviction actions have already been filed, and what yet we believe is in the pipeline. By educate, we're going to launch shortly an aggressive advertising campaign full of materials that are directed, Eric, Mayor, directed at the low wage income earners and the extremely low wage income earners in our community, focused on getting a net under them. It is a whole lot less expensive for us to front 5 or 6 or 8 or 9 months of rent We know that simply buying back the back rent, negotiating settlements with these landlords and banks will not just get it. We've got to get the financial resources to negotiate those out and reach settlement agreements. And then what we've got to do from there is make sure that we've got 3 or 4 or 5 more months right behind it, if you will, and utility payments, because we know while the vaccination is out there, it's going to be months and months before we get to a place where the communities are stabilized and people are re-employed. And so this could be July, August, September. So we've got to have those financial resources. You know, a lot of people, when they speak about the Constitution, will tell you the First Amendment's the most important piece of the Constitution. Others will tell you it's the Second Amendment. Others will tell you it's the Fifth Amendment. Let me tell you the most important part of the Constitution today to me and to the people of this community. The Constitution says the government is responsible for protecting our health, our safety, and our welfare. And if Congress fails to act, if they fail to act and send financial resources to the local communities for homeless eviction protection with no strings attached, they are going to put people to death. Let me remind you, in 2008, 9, and 10, in that great economic downturn, provisions were put in place that required, as a condition to rent, you had to have a certain credit score. Now, the credit score didn't have to be 680. It didn't have to be 700. It could be in the 500s. But if you get evicted, your credit score is going in the garbage can. You will never be able to rent again. You're telling those people they got to go live in shelter for years, that they've got to go live on the streets because we're not going to have adequate shelter. We don't own adequate housing to house people. We're going to kill people because somebody in Washington has decided that rhetoric is more important than action, because we don't want to send it, Senator McConnell says, down to the local governments. If you do not send it to the locals very directly with no strings so I can get the money out there. We're in the process of trying to identify 150 pro bono lawyers to help when the floodgates open to negotiate these settlements in hopes that people in Congress and the United States Senate will recognize those 3 words: health, safety, welfare. There is no more important part of our Constitution today than that. Can you think of people more vulnerable that live 13 to 17 fewer years of life than you and me? And the answer is no, you can't. And if we start putting thousands of people out on the streets, I won't recognize what this place is. We'll be decades trying to dig our way out. When we started 27 years ago, San Francisco, LA, Houston, Dallas, New Orleans, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Chicago, New York, DC, they all had a very similar population of individuals, unsheltered and living on their streets. Back then, they didn't do what we did. So today, go to Los Angeles, where they've got 20 or 30,000. Oh no, that's not right, Ron. Double that. They've got 65,000 people homeless in Los Angeles. They've got 50,000 plus in San Francisco. That's not where I want to live. That's not where I want to be. And I don't want my community to turn into that. What can we do? We can step up and we can help lead We're going to launch a campaign, a fundraising campaign to help us with money that will go directly to rental relief. The Dade Foundation has already pledged to help us kick off a large number. People always want to know, can we provide food? Can we provide toys? Can we provide this? We got a lot of people providing food right now, and feeding people on the streets is a terribly bad thing. We need moving kits for people when they need to get resettled. We need eating utensils. We need pillows. We need blankets. We need towels. People that are on the verge of homelessness, you know somebody, call us. 305-375-1490 is the number at the Homeless Trust. 305-375-1490 is the number at the trust. You can go to thehomelesstrust.org. We've got all kinds of information. There'll be pledge keys on there. We don't do rake-offs. We don't pay fees to people. Those monies go directly to ending homelessness. Yes, 4820. That's what we do. And there's never been a point.
If somebody wants to volunteer, Ron, is that the same number they would call?
Yes, 305-375-1490. And look, a lot of people have written to me and called me a little frustrated because they had historically volunteered at Camillus or the Rescue Mission or Chapman or Lotus House or Salvation Army. We're keeping volunteers physically at those centers to a lower number to protect those we house there, but to protect the community as well. We don't let one word that gets uttered from the CDC, we take it literally, and we take it directly. The CDC was so impressed months ago with our outcomes. They came to town, they sent a couple of doctors here. What the hell are they doing? What are they doing? Because their numbers are illogical. Are they fudging their numbers? You can't fudge the numbers. Can't change numbers that come from laboratories. 91,000 meals served to the people that are quarantined and isolated. People want to get involved, call us.
Well, you know, Ron, I'm looking at the chat. Robert Jones, he mentioned, I'm trying to read. Hold on, let me put on my glasses. That'll help. What is the Homeless Trust plan to help the new homeless individuals due to COVID? And I believe you've answered that question in terms of raising money in the eviction piece, where you're trying to get lawyers to provide pro bono to basically thwart those evictions. And then, do you see the chat?
I do. Look, you know, problem area are those people who come from other communities here. We don't turn anybody away. We have a lot of people that are here already. And I see that number, and I'm going to write it down and have somebody reach out to them as soon as I get off. But the bottom line, 305-375-1490. You become aware of somebody that's about to become homeless, we want to catch them. We want to catch them early. And I'm reading. Olivia will be in touch. Somebody will reach out to you shortly. My folks are, I'm sure tuned in. If they can't read it, if you want to catch it before I send you an email, you can reach Olivia at 754-243-1107. 754-243-1107. Olivia Lantigua. And she can also be found at olivia.lantigua, LANTIGUA @wellcare.com. Let's get her and let's get those folks in today.
Hey, Ron.
They have how many children? 4 children.
I see there's a quiz that the Homeless Trust has. And you can go to that quiz at quiz.homelesstrust.org /HAD quiz. So that's quiz.homelesstrust.org /HADQUIZ. So we're asking that you take that quiz. If you're tuned in, you're listening. So please do that. Ron, before we go, you know, to say I understand your passion, because this isn't about passion. You live this each and every day. This is beyond passion. You know, you and I have been knowing each other a good while now, and I know you don't do anything. I want to say the word half. It comes on the other side of that word. You don't do anything. You are in 1,000%. I love you. I love what you stand for, and anything that we can do from the chamber perspective to help get the word out. We're here. I'm here to support you, and here to support this community. We both grew up in this community. We love our community. We are Miami-Dade County and South Floridians, Miamians, basically all our lives for the most part. And if we're not working together to resolve the issues and problems in our community, then we will never get there. So it's going to take all of us working together, all the chambers throughout Dade and Broward County, all the various organizations to address this issue. Exactly. It's going to take this. We talk about a population of 2.9, almost 3 million people. And obviously there are the haves and the have-nots. And I will say this, it's for those who haven't stepped up, it's time for them to step up now. If there ever was a time, it's time for everyone to step up.
We need you now more than we've ever needed you before. The community needs you now more than you've ever been needed before. And I can tell you, I'm looking at the chat. I see somebody's already reached out to that young lady. We will catch her and we will take care of it.
All right, Ron, any closing words before we go?
We're about to launch our fundraising effort that will provide direct assistance to individuals that are about to be homeless. Anybody that wants to volunteer, we urge you to go to homelesstrust.org. I repeat, the challenges that this community, this village are about to face on January 1, 2021, as we attempt to put 2020 in our rearview mirror. If we don't want a repeat of the misery of 2020, our community needs to step up, stand tall, and help. And it's not about feeding people on the streets, and it's not about that instant gratification you get dropping spare change into a panhandler's bucket, cup, or hat. That does nothing to end homelessness in our community. We need to put those dollars to good use. Rent units, save people in their units, housing, coordinated services, and eating indoors with sanitary conditions, with proper personal hygiene that gives our outreach workers the opportunity to get you placed and to get you housed and to get you reemployed. We need the community's help. I've never, not in 27 years, Eric, not have I ever turned to this community and said, we need you in mass. We need you in mass.
Hey, Ron, I know this is a little sidebar. I know you have the meters all around town. I know you did. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Pardon?
The meters that you had, the colored meters that Brito painted.
They're intended to discourage panhandling. They're intended to put people's spare change to good use, to buy beds, to buy units of housing, and to buy services. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, that's how you put it to good use. You can still find those meters at every people mover station, every Metro Rail station, dotted all along Flagler Street, all around the downtown area where panhandling had been so prevalent. The whole goal was put that spare change to good use. Spare change to bring change. Spare change to bring change.
I like that. So what we're talking about, you know how you go and park and you put your money in meter, you'll see a yellow meter that's been painted by Brito, and his design is by Brito, and that meter is there specifically for you to put spare change for exactly what Ron is talking about. And that money goes to buying beds, putting people in shelters, buying food, etc. So if you walk by one of those meters, drop some of that spare change in there. All
We
right,
need
Ron.
it. Thank you.
No, thank you, brother. Love you, man.
I love you
Happy
too.
Hanukkah
Thank you.
to the family.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. We'll talk offline.
I hope so, Eric.
All right.
Happy holidays to you, your family. Mr. Mayor, to you, continue to lead by example. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Ron.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Take care.